recorded. If you miss any part of it, you can circle back around and request a recording of this session. During this session, we're going to talk about Provincial Pace Text, the National Text Platform, and the new release that we're working on currently and getting ready to deploy. This new release includes several other tangential things that are happening, including new points of integration and new integration partners, and then live data visualization. So we're including many other things with regard to this new release. And so in addition to updating the user interface, making it easier on the eye, making it easier to use, making it easier to manage concurrent conversations, all of those things that we've been working on for a while now. And then in tow with all of that are new points of integration and new integration API supports. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. My name is Jonathan. I'm with Educational Message Services and Provincial Pace Text, and we're going to be talking about 211 and texting primarily. However, we support texting for several different types of agencies. We support texting for crisis centers, INRs, information and referral, AIRS members. We work with a lot of health departments, universities, WIC agencies, federal agencies, DHS. The service, Provincial Pace Text, is a secure service, co-located servers in data centers, dedicated servers that we own and operate, Provincial Pace Text. If you have any questions about the data, archiving of data, storage, and the model, there's a document in the FTP, and I'm going to provide a link to the FTP for all of those who haven't been there. It's the place where we put all information pertaining to changes and content that you can use in your own programs and services. So sample content, sample programs, how-tos, the user guide, recordings of webinars, all kinds of things. So we will be updating that. And then let me see, let's go ahead and get started. So on January 30th, UW United Way Worldwide provided a 1-hour webinar to the field regarding how 211s responded to disasters and emergencies over the past year on NTP and 898211. 898211 is the short code recognized by United Ways and 211s as the number for 211s and texting. 203 registrants and 175 joined that session. This is kind of an update after what we've done over the past several months to enhance the service and make the service more useful, and also make the service more useful in the ways in which the agencies are using it in conjunction with their other softwares. So we've been doing all of that in the last several months, and we've hit several markers, including a deployment of a national program, and then of course we've been managing and helping with current disasters all the way up through this year and into this new quarter. Fires here in California once again, and then hurricane season, of course, is upon us once again. All the while making the service available for ongoing support in that way. And to give you an idea of how text has been used just recently in these fires here in California, in the first 48 hours, they had approximately 5,000 text encounters, as opposed to 680 phone calls to their 211 responding to the Carr Fire in NorCal. So it gives you a 5-to-1 ratio on people were able to text. They weren't able to make phone calls. And these were people in the impacted area. These were people who were dealing with phone services, telephone lines being down, power being down, all kinds of different things made it difficult for them to communicate and get information. We're also going to talk about goals and objectives for the rest of this year. So what did we do in 2017 that was different? So we created a central repository for resource information, right? And developed mechanisms for receiving and sharing emergency information. So the system itself is now calibrated to support a centralized response if necessary. So other 211s can participate, join in that response, and they can be working remotely. They can be working from their site in their state and be responding to a need, a very acute need in the form of disasters all the way across the country, as was the case last year with Irma, and then the floods and the fires. Develop an overview of center and community to share with volunteers and assisters. So we want 211s and their partners to be able to work together on this platform to provide assistance to each other. So in chats between each other while they're providing text message support to the community. And create some generic disaster records, which is kind of what we've been working on lately. Establishing, well, what worked well during these events and what can we make common and commonly used, and so that we're not always, shooting from the hip. We're a little bit more proactive. We have standing queues and standing resources and standing group of administrators who are all thinking about how we can continue to help with these events and be more proactive, have EOC partnerships more defined, things like that. And we're currently working on those generic disaster records. The word generic just means that common terms and common resources and common things that might be consistent across each disaster. New features and capacity. This is something that is, of course, a part of the new release. It's coming in the next month or so. And some of the new features and capacity are going to be in support of emergency and disasters work. Something we were just talking about. New features and capacity for INR, right? Making things easier for information and referral, providing of resources to people requesting those resources, whether they've made a phone call and they're getting a text, and that text is coming out of the CRM to that caller via 898-211, or they're having a text conversation, and that text conversation culminates in an integrated referral that's pulled directly from your CRM. Concurrent conversations, making that easier to manage, making them more streamlined and efficient. So we're modifying our core system in that we're going from a pull system to a push, which is going to streamline and make each of the processes just that much quicker. For collective impact, community programs, opioid text program, Text for Tots program, programs that are available for any INR 211 United Way to join in, participate, and get funding in the local market. How is your 211, how is your United Way impacting your community? And how can we use programs that have been tried and true and can be scaled up to do that work and support that work? Disasters, the opioid text program, FTPs, APIs, and integration. All those things are coming as part of this new deployment. So before we jump into the next slide, let's talk a little bit about FTPs and APIs. So FTP is just where we're putting the repository, Google Drive, simple. we're putting all of the files and the information related to each sector that we're serving. So we've got a file or folder for 211s and 898.211, and all of the files related to any work that's being done in that sector. So it's easy. Onboarding is easy. You can go there as an administrator. You can get resources that are going to help you right down to creating a new staff profile or running a report. So in that FTP, which we'll hop on in a moment, just have a look around so you can get a feel for what's there. In that FTP, you'll have each type of staff that is going to be interacting with the software has a place to go and files related to how they're using the software. And training is consistent with that. So we're training administrators separate from the training that we're doing with frontline responders. So it's just simple. The reason behind that is the frontline responders, it's much more streamlined, right? It's here's how you handle a conversation by text. And then here's how you send referrals by text. Whereas the administrative session is a little bit more drawn out, right? We're talking about reports. We're talking about data. We're talking about documenting. We're talking about onboarding and preparation and getting started. Call to action, creating notice, what resources are available for you for announcement, sample content, sample news press releases, all of those things to help the administrator understand how they're going to be using the software and how they're going to help their staff use the software. That FTP is consistent with each role and the training. And so we're always talking about and referencing that. And during the training, we'll reference it. Let's look at that real quick. So the FTP is right here. And the folders are pretty descriptive, like the APIs, right? So this takes you through all the API files are in one folder. And you're able to read about all the ways in which we're supporting integration. So in the main, there's 5 points of integration within TP. And that's covered in this document. We provide in lay terms descriptions of the point of integration, and then we also provide the actual instructions for the coding to be done on the CRM or the third-party software side to then support the integration. The most common one and the one that is most prevalent among CRMs and most prevalently deployed at this point is the integration of the referrals. So being able to send referrals out of your CRM to a phone number, a mobile number, and use 898.211. What's nice about that is it's going down 898.211, so you're guaranteeing delivery of that. We support complete all carriers in North America, and we also guarantee delivery through a ticketing process. So each outgoing referral, even if it's just a referral to a caller, gets a delivery receipt, and that's carrier grade. So if it's AT&T that you're sending the referral to, we get a report from AT&T when that gets received at their gateway, and then when it actually gets delivered. And if it can't be delivered, we auto retry it. So we've got relationships with all the carriers so that delivery receipts can be supported with all outgoing texts. What's also nice about that is you can track it, right? You can actually see in the Prevention Pays text that referral going to that caller. And then should that caller have a problem with that referral, they can text back, and you're going to see that. That's going to pop up in your queue. The isolated event of a referral going to this caller and never having contact with that individual again, that's changing. And we all know that to be true. People are using 211s and INRs for ongoing needs, right? They have their content, especially through text, they're contacting INRs and 211s at a younger stage. So at an earlier stage with their family. So there's a good likelihood that they're going to return, especially if they got help and they appreciated the help that first time. So being able to see the full record of all of the events that transpired and then be able to switch channels with them and jump on in a text conversation with them has been really useful and a great learning tool, a great way to become acclimated to the software. There's other points of integration. We want you to be able to pass all of your data. So let's say you set up in prevention-based text a survey, and you're surveying clients about quality assurance. And after each encounter, they get a survey 1 week after that encounter. And that's just to see whether or not they acted on any of the referrals that were given to them, all by text. We want that data to go back into your CRM so that it's there in your CRM as part of that client's profile, that client's record. So passing the results of that survey to your CRM is another point of integration. And then 211 on demand. So what the heck is that, right? 211 on demand is simply querying, having a encounter with an individual that's fully automated that pulls referrals at the end of that encounter. So obtaining information like their zip code, and then we can auto pop the county, and then we can do a search on high frequency, high use issues, and query the database and pull the CRM and pull the referrals out and deliver that to the end user seamlessly. That's 211 on demand. And you'd be surprised how helpful this has been as being an adjunct, not a replace live help, but in conjunction with. So freeing up specialists to work on the more complicated, more needy clientele, right? The more layered ones. And then the high contact issues are being resolved with 211 on demand. We do several deployments. 211 Atlanta is doing it with a couple of their high contact issues. Ohio's doing it. Site New York's doing it. 211 on demand. It's think of it like a utility. We're using it for the opioid text program. So when people text in to get resources, they're queried about who they're getting help for, and then we find out where they're texting from, and then we're pulling those resources based on their need. If they're an individual, or if they're getting support for somebody that they care about, a loved one, or that's in their care, or they're just getting general information about the program or the epidemic. So all of that is happening in an automated Q&A, SMS Q&A. At the end of that, referrals are deployed. And then we're tracking all of that and providing that to the 211s that are participating. And there's somewhere around 15 to 20 early adopters of this project, statewide deployments. Wonderful, wonderful project. Getting funding locally. We've had several reports of 211s participating that have already funded the project. It's a wonderful, wonderful way, free to onboard and use the service. And when it's integrated, it's wonderful, lovely, and but we can support you if your CRM isn't integrated. We also support anyone can be a part of this project. So 211 on demand is a little bit of a little bit of automation mixed with integration. And then here's how we support that integration. So the third-party software can connect using this code. And then what is the two-way text dialogue? So we can alert the CRM, or we can alert the cloud-based telephony that there's a new text dialogue happening. And then we can also be alerted if a phone call comes into the telephony. So wonderful integration there, so that the two or multiple softwares are communicating when the different things are happening in the respective softwares. All right. So in addition to the API files, a lot of other stuff, right? Canned phrases. We provide sample canned content, sample guides, startup guides, Here's the HIPAA assurances. This is our security protocols. So this is open source, available to anybody to go here, look around, and pull documents, learn about how the program is being used, or learn about Opioid text program. There's a one-page description right in the very first part of it, and then how it got started, the basis of it, its architecture, and then how to participate. We're also supporting outreach, so we'll develop open source web banners and open source posters. Anything that gets developed under this project is going to be open source. So if you're concerned about how you're going to provide notice, you can use these. You can get the high resolution images, modify them, put your own logos on them, whatever you want. We're constantly also thinking about and developing resources and tools to help you with announcing programs. And then we also talk about, let me see. Oh, and then if you have a survey that you want to use in the software, we provide sample surveys. So we take you through that process of how you get that survey operational and then how you get that data. Call to action guidelines, right? You would think that, you know, something simple like that you don't need necessarily help with, but you know, call to action, you don't necessarily use that term. And so all that means is when you provide notice to your community that they can text you, what process do you go through to update that website or that other tool or that other channel or medium, right? What steps do you take to make sure that you're meeting CTIA and FCC communication guidelines? So notifying people that they can opt out automatically by texting stop, quit, or unsubscribe. You know, things like that, all explained as part of the call to action guidelines. Other guides, startup guides. So in addition to a guide that takes you through each of the tabs and how you use the software, there's also a reports description guide. This takes you through all of the data, how you get at it, what's in each report. A commonly used report is an all users report. I can't tell you how often this is used. I mean, it's an export of everybody who ever texts you. So you can use that in other ways, right? You can upload it as an Excel spreadsheet and send them a message and group them and do whatever you want. It's a nice export of everybody who ever texts you. And it's got all of these columns of information. Another one is the encounters report. So the encounters report is kind of like the equivalent of your call report. If you're thinking in terms of the contact center environment, the call report tells you your calls, right? And some metrics of the call. And those call reports have become a little bit better over the years, right? A little bit more data. Response times, hopefully, things like that, how many rings, stuff like, you know, the metrics of it. So the encounters report is similar to that. It's going to be the text message equivalent of that. We're providing several columns of information in this report. So this is how you justify your INR, your support to your funder. Gets an encounter ID, so each encounter gets a unique ID. The mobile phone number, of course, that had the encounter. Number of outgoings, number of incomings, and duration of that encounter. Who handled it? Which responder, which staff member, specialist? How long did it take them to get to it? And the start time and date. And then whatever keyword or zip code that was used to opt them in. And you can run that report. The data model is this. You can pull reports in an ad hoc way. So you create a report, runs every night for a date range of your selection or your choice. Or you can run automated reports on a frequency of your choosing. And the automated report will run according to schedule, right? So if you have daily reports every night, you get your daily report. If you have weekly reports every Monday morning, you'll get your weekly report. Monthly reports, and you can have multiple instances of each one. So you could be getting encounters report daily, weekly, monthly. And each one of those is going to have your information for that past 24 hours or past week or past month. And then if you ever need to go bigger or longer or more than that, you can run an ad hoc and pull for the date range of your choosing. Another important report, survey responses. So being able to see and track how people are responding to the surveys, not just the surveys like the quality assurance surveys, but also intake surveys, eligibility surveys, becoming huge in 211 INRs. Being able to query them in advance for a service like homelessness and trying to get them into a stable living environment. Many of the 211s and INRs are using a series of questions that can be automated. Some food bank assistance programs have several intake questions, several criteria for how you may or may not qualify for going to that particular food bank. So you all dealt with this, you all know about it, surveys that are intake related, right? Those two can be uploaded and become part of your text message program. And so don't just think of that survey as being something that happens afterwards or after the encounter. Also think of it as something that might be a precursor to the encounter happening or something during the encounter even. We see that they're going to ask for this particular resource, so then we're going to assign this survey to them. Right there in the UI, you can assign the survey to them. And go help somebody else while they're working on that. And monitor them while they complete it. And then when they're done, pop back into your conversation with them. Okay, you can also, in the same ways that you can look at the metrics of the contacts, the people who are texting you, you can also look at your responders, the metrics of the responder. So you can run a report, complete export of everything they've done, all the conversations they've handled, the content of the conversation, the duration of everything, all the metrics in one report. So you can run a single responder report just to see how your responders are doing. You can also run a single responder summary just to get the high level, how many encounters they took, which encounters, ID numbers, phone numbers, how many outgoings, how many, just kind of get an idea of their productivity. All responder summary is going to be everybody, right? Your whole staff and the high level stuff on all of their everybody's metrics, and then how those stack up together, looking at them in across all of those columns of information. And then, of course, you can always export your conversations into an Excel spreadsheet and have a look at all conversations, take home for some evening reading, right? But yeah, always export all your conversations into an Excel spreadsheet so that you can append that or upload it into another software. If you're using third-party graphing or whatever, all the reports are in XLS or CSV. So extremely consumable, highly malleable data. Okay, another thing here is we provide some SMS best practice, listserv best practice as it relates to what we've learned over the years. So return rates, things like that, regrouping is important. So ad hoc grouping beyond that initial group. This is great to be able to text people and create a big group, but what happens after that? You just let that group go languish because they maybe don't necessarily meet the needs anymore of that, how they were once as part of that group. And so suddenly it becomes a useless group. So we talk about how you reinvigorate your listserv simply by regrouping them. And that's terrifically easy to do. The Groups tab lets you do that, just like managing email listservs. Same kind of principles and same kind of tools that help you do that. And this helps you work through some of that. And some of the strategies, so if you're providing live help, as they text you, you can be grouping them. And then you can provide them with information after they've received the referrals. Alert them about new resources, or alert them about another event, or alert them about the same event or the same resources that they got help for, but just letting them know by text next time. And so you're ensuring that they're probably going to recontact you by just giving them a little nudge toward next year's tax season, for example. Okay, promotional documents, right? We talked about that, sample JPEG banners. Now these banners, just general 211, open source. Texting your zip code to 898211 to get live support in Spanish and English. All open source. You can get these. We just provide, the high resolution JPEG or high resolution Photoshop. And you can also request the images themselves. Okay, so let's pop back over to this now. Resume. Let me see if I can resume. Nope. Okay. So advanced. So this is what we're deploying. Okay, in the next couple of months, we'll be deploying the new UI. The new UI is going to be easier to manage. New user interface will make concurrent conversations much easier to manage. Why is that important? So concurrent conversations are really changing the face of INR. 211 in Ventura would not have been able to help 5,000 people in 48 hours if they weren't able to have concurrent conversations. 211s would not be able to help in bursts of communication at any point. If there's a cold snap and a whole bunch of people are calling about getting some utility bill pay assistance. And you've all been through these moments in time where you're getting inundated with requests for support. So without concurrent conversations, you simply can't manage all of those requests in a way that's going to be best practice, right? So concurrent conversations is significant. We want you to be able to handle those in a super simple and efficient way. And so changing our model from pull to push is going to make it faster, snappier, and then the user interface, as we've adjusted it and we'll be deploying, is going to be actually much easier to work with in that mode, in the concurrent conversation mode. We're marking encounter with data fields that can auto-populate. So as they text their zip code, we're automatically querying for their county. And we do that using an integrated piece that utilizes a federal site. So we have the most current information on what county goes with that zip code. If that zip code is split across multiple counties, we automatically query for which county. And we give them an easy text back that just says, which is your county, select 1 for this or 2 for that. So it's super simple. And then we auto-pop their profile with that information. Zip code and county would go right into their attributes. Why is that significant? Well, it's removing that necessity of having to group them later by, for instance, county. If we're auto-populating that and making that part of their profile, out of the box, they can be texted according to county or zip code, which is really nice. Nice during disasters, nice during any kind of event that is impacting that particular community. It doesn't necessarily have to be disaster emergency related, right? It can be just notice of new resources, new referrals that are directly impacting their county. Why alert everybody if it's only impacting a handful, a subset? Interactive staff rosters. So right now we've got the heartbeat, right? You've got your staff roster. You know when they logged in. You know when they last had an interaction. You know how long they're logged in for, right? Those metrics. We also want you to be able to start conversations, instant message with your staff right from your roster. And that direct one-on-one staff chat, being able to create subsets, groups. This is the group that I'm chatting with versus this is the individual that I'm chatting with on my staff. And this is tangential to whatever conversations you're managing. So having conversations with clients and then direct messaging staff about your encounters. Hey, do you know about this referral? Could you send me that link? I don't have a current link for it. And then bang, you've got that link rather than walking down to their office or shouting across the room. Multi-channel interoperability, integrated with CRMs and then integrated with telephony, right? As telephony products go cloud-based, we can pass information to them and they can pass information to us. So a phone call lets us know, hey, that contact, that queue has a phone call in it. Notifying that queue, hey, Prevention Pays has a text in it. So cross-channel and population within queues so that notifications are simple and easy to use and clickable. So you're not having to log into a different web-based product, right? You're just going right into that conversation with that individual. Send text from your database. Don't copy paste them. Send them from your database and use 898-211, as we've talked about, the benefits of that. Can't tell you how useful this has been. Just this single point of integration, how useful and impactful this has been. But that, as you saw earlier, that's just the beginning. We want there to be integration across all of those points of integration, each one of those ways. Mobile optimized keywords and text to give. So don't just think about texting in terms of INR, providing live support. Also think about it in terms of an on-ramp to your pay gate. Donations. Texting during those times. Texting during events. Long-term texting for donors. You know, donor storytelling, this new concept, right? Of storytelling throughout the year, giving them snippets of information by text. It's convenient, doesn't bother me. If I get a text every once in a while from this nonprofit that I like to donate to, and then I'm learning more about what they're doing, and then at the end of the year they ask me to give, or every quarter they ask me to give, I'm not much more inclined to give because I know a little bit more about them. That cool thing that they did for the resident that had lost their home, or the wonderful thing that they did for the resident that needed support with their bill pay. Tiny little stories that you think are insignificant that happen every day, hundreds of times. And then live data visualization. So right out of the user interface, the dashboard, going to be able to say, okay, let me graph this data, and then see this data in a graph. So that you can always be a click away from that data visualized, which we think is awesome. We think that's just really going to make the system, the software, infinitely more useful and infinitely more impactful. We're excited. As I mentioned, we're in the process of deploying. We continue to integrate. We think integration is just a part of our status quo, right? It's part of what we do today. We will be continuing to integrate. And we think of it as we have an always in development philosophy. We're always building and adding features and seamless deployments of new features and all of that. We have a wiki environment that our developers work in. Integration is now just a part of that. So we're committed to that long term because it's going to change, right? Needs will shift. and change. The third-party software that you're using might do something, an update that changes, that we have to quickly pivot around and update to make sure that everything still works in the appropriate ways. So it's not something you just turn on and then walk away from. Okay, that covers what I wanted to cover. If you have any questions, I'm going to hang out for a few moments. You can write them in and go ahead and write your questions in. Otherwise, you're off the hook. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Jonathan. This session was recorded. We're going to provide the recording. You can receive the slides as well. And we're excited. We're excited about this next quarter and all of the wonderful things that are coming. Have a good rest of your day. Like I said, I'll be available for any questions that you have.